Now I'm happy to introduce you friend Dobbin, Professor of Sociology at Harvard University. Hello, we are really happy to see you here. And you are known as an expert in the organizations. But what is your current research interest?
Well, I'm working on two things mainly. Today I talked about the rise of the shareholder value conception of control in corporations and the change in business strategy among American firms since the 1980s and the role that played in the recent economic crises, in the collapse of Enron and WorldCom and Tyco, and then in the 2008 collapse of financial markets. And the other thing I'm working on mostly, much of my time, is diversity management, in particular the effects of different kinds of diversity management practices on actual diversity in firms, which kinds of practices promote the careers of women, Asian Americans, African Americans, and Latinos in American firms, and also the effects of diversity on corporate performance. So if firms increase the number of women in their management ranks, if they increase the number of African Americans in professional jobs, do they see increases in actual profits or stock price performance?
I know that you've already presented your paper and it was really great. And can you tell us about your impressions of this first plenary session?
Well, I thought it was a terrific session because Glenn Morgan gave a wonderful talk that sketched what's going on in capitalism globally right now, and he made a nice distinction between capitalism as a system and the various forms of capitalism we see in different countries. And he kind of tried to argue that capitalism as a system is alive and well, that is, there's no competing system in the world today, but that particular forms of capitalism are in trouble. So I thought it was a great session because he went first and he made that argument, and then I came and I talked about how the American form of capitalism is in serious trouble now because we have this system that encourages firms to take excessive risk, and although after the crises of 2001, we had Sarbanes-Oxley, a piece of legislation that was designed to prevent that kind of risk-taking. And then again, after the financial crisis hit in 2008, we have what's called the Dodd-Frank legislation, which is addressed also at trying to reduce this kind of risk-taking among firms. Although we have these pieces of legislation that were designed to prevent another crisis from happening, the main things that caused the crisis, and those are stock options for chief executive officers and a failure of corporate board control over firms, and also the absence of chief executive officer equity holdings in firms, which equity holdings are one of the things that makes firms careful not to take too much risk because the CEO is risking his own money if he makes risky bets. We see that nothing has changed any of those things. So these regulations don't address those problems. So I thought that the two talks went very well together because if you consider American capitalism to be the pinnacle of capitalism these days, we still have a problem that's very seriously flawed. And that was kind of Glenn's argument, that the individual forms of capitalism are flawed, even though everyone accepts very well capitalism as a system.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me.